So maybe first question for Simona and Zorana. How do you, in your municipalities, actually, how do you see volunteering within the municipality? Where does it take place? Who supports these processes? And like, how do you as well value the volunteering in the city of Ljubljana and in the city of Zagreb? Maybe Simona, you can start, and then Zorana.
Thank you. The city of Ljubljana is a great supporter of volunteerism. It promotes development, organization, and quality implementation of the volunteer work in various ways. This is also evident from its long-standing financial support for numerous volunteer organizations and its free of charge rental of facilities. We pay special attention to the inclusion of voluntary work in programs that we select for co-financing via public tenders in various content fields like in sport, youth work, environment protection, social care, health, and so on. In this, voluntary work is treated as a separate and financially valuable contribution of program providers. As well as co-financing program, we also support and cooperate in the organization of individual one-off voluntary campaigns and various events. We also dedicate special attention to support programs to organizations that include volunteers in their work. Such support includes, for example, help in organizing voluntary work, education for volunteers, help to volunteering mentors, and providing information about the diverse options for carrying out voluntary work. Since 2014, Ljubljana has been awarded with the title Volunteer Friendly City. And that is not just one of those titles, it is a way of life, the energy of our city. In my opinion, volunteering is one of the most important values of individuals, groups, and various organizations in the city in Ljubljana.
Great, thank you, Simona. Zorana?
Okay. I believe that all of you know that 2001 was announced as a European Year of Volunteering. I'm saying that because since then, our City Office for Social Protection and Persons with Disabilities started to develop our program of how to work with volunteers and how to encourage volunteering in local communities. So for now, over 20 years, we are approaching the volunteer very seriously. And through different kind of coordination of the NGOs, of the humanitarian work of the NGOs and some initiatives, we started to encourage voluntary actions in our city. As you can hear from our name of our city office, in the focus of our work is a human being. Humans who are in some need, like homeless people, people with disabilities, elderly, children, youth, and so on. So all the time in our focus of our work are people, of course, and that is why we are trying to focus our activities and the activities of our volunteers in our local community to help to those beneficiaries. This lady before us, Miss Renata, put some topics that are very, very important in our work. Almost 80% of our employers in our city office are social workers. And we have this intrinsic need to help people, you know, we are social workers. And I think that this helps us to develop volunteer actions and volunteer work in our local community. So nowadays, through the public call, through some other project, through some initiatives, we are encouraging volunteerism in our local community. And I think that the special benefit is for our users that we managed to develop a volunteer program with our institutions. For example, with homes for old people. We developed one great project. It's called gerontological team and project in the local community. And through that, we have over 100 volunteers in every area in the city of Zagreb that are working and give their free time for old people, for users. And of course, through some projects that we are developing together to DSF and the program of UNER, we are trying to gather finances for developing projects for our users with new volunteers in our local community. So these are some little topics that we are working not just today, then for over 20 years till now.
Thank you very much, Zorana. Now I would have a question for Marcus, Chris, and Marietta. You are all working in the kind of associations, institutions that are supporting volunteering somehow. Could you share us like the elements of quality supporting mechanisms for volunteering? Maybe Marcus, you can start, and then Chris and Marietta.
Yeah, feel free to stop me because I tend to talk too much usually. So, well, quality. Well, then we have to define quality. What I can share from my daily experience working with volunteers, supporting organizations who are becoming hosting organizations for international volunteering, but also being part of the program structures on national level. Well, the point is, if we look at the columns or at social work as a system, everything was related to, and this is my field, international youth work, and the international volunteering is part of it. It's most of the time add-on. It's on top. If I look at our social workers in the youth clubs, in the youth centers, in the structures of child and youth care in Germany, whenever you would like to do something internationally because you believe that international mobility is an important part of competence development or whatever your goals are, if you are in human rights education or civic education, or simply think that this is an added value for the development or whatever for the child or the youngsters, it's mostly add-on or on top, because the structures are not built in a way that it's welcoming additional or these kind of efforts, I would say. There are various reasons behind. So the biggest point is that you might need people who have the resources and the time to take care about international volunteering. This is a structural issue most of the time. Then, and now I'm going a little bit into the structure, what I face very often is that it's also not easy for the teams to, and we're speaking about time-limited investments or stays of young people, international youngsters, is to treat them as equal team members. And this needs a certain culture in the teams to welcome volunteers, especially international volunteers. That means also this involvement into team structures, into communication structures, which is again time and resource intensive processes, because the youngsters or the young people who are joining the organizations are not most probably used to this, so it needs time. And the fourth point I would like to add is this, this functioning mentoring system, which is sometimes easily overseen, that it's extremely important. Beside this, all professional involvement and inclusion in structures and functionalities, they are still, and don't get me wrong, there's still young people, and they have to arrive in a new society in a way, on new systems and new structures, so that you need a functioning mentoring system. And this might be certain elements of a quality system without, taking it too deep now in order to define quality again. Yeah, there's most probably much more.
Thank you, Marcus. Chris?
Could you just rephrase the question? Because I'm sorry, I have dyslexia, so sometimes I forget the specific question. I'm sorry.
No problem. So what do you see as like the elements of important supporting mechanisms for volunteering? Like your project, for example, it's also a lot about like community building, but you need like certain structures to support quality volunteering. So how do you see that?
So I basically, in Luxembourg, there hasn't been really a big like voluntary basis. Like there's one agency, and it's not really currently with COVID at all. There's barely no volunteering possibilities because it's just not something that's really arrived in a sense here in Luxembourg. Plus the actual European Capital of Culture, it's 19 municipalities which reach over the border of Luxembourg and France. So I basically have to try and already have 2 different countries kind of come together, which is really hard because we literally have people that speak Luxembourgish, French, Italian, Portuguese, English. So I already have to do everything in 3 languages. So everything I do, I have to go through 3 to 4 languages to make it accessible for everyone, which is also one of the philosophies of our Capital of Culture, which is accessibility. So we are literally working together with the ministry. We are lucky enough to actually have that support that we can go back to having first aid courses, accessibility courses, helped through literally the state and through, because it is such a cultural big thing that I am lucky enough, honestly, to say that I get these resources and that help, because honestly, I'm literally supposed to work with 1,000 volunteers that have probably never met each other. And I literally have to bring them together and try and get them onto the same level, which is, like Marcus said already, really time consuming. Just to even like get the content together, plus then having to actually meet those 1,000 people, especially with COVID, when you're not allowed to meet more than, well, currently 150, but then you need so much space, and then you want to do it outside, and then it's raining. So it's really hard to actually like organize the whole thing to get the people together. And then you also need to kind of have team building exercises. And like you said, it's to have this quality with the amount of people, from my side at least, is really hard to achieve. And obviously I'm doing my best, we're doing our best here. But that's why my main question was on that board that we had to put is, how do I get those different cultures and age groups to connect in a fast possible way? Because I think that's one of the biggest challenges, is because everyone is individual, everyone thinks different. So you need to kind of get everyone on the same level, which is, in my opinion, one of the biggest challenges we face
Thank you very much, Chris. Marietta, the same question as you, for you, like how do you see supporting mechanisms, as well, maybe if you can connect it a bit with like how, for example, municipality of Ljubljana is supporting you, and then also like as you have like some other units, how do they support you so you can support volunteering?
Yes, I think most of the points were already said. I would strongly say that mentoring is a really, really important point of supporting quality volunteering. Also, a good network. I think it's really, really important. At Slovenian Philanthropy, we have a network for volunteering organizations. We have around 1,800 organizations included in the network. So what we are doing is we are offering the information, the support, the needed structure for their volunteering work, for the volunteering work of all that organizations. We are also having educational mentoring sessions that are run through the year. I mean, of course, this COVID situation is special for all of us, but I'm saying at first only the basic structure of what is going on with us. So actually the organizations can rely on us in getting the information and the support needed to run their volunteering in their community. We are also having the website. It's called prostovoljstvo.org. It's actually Slovenian orientated because it's mostly for the volunteering work. It's basically it's a search engine for volunteering work, where volunteers can find their jobs to do when they are ready to volunteer, and where organizations who have their needs for volunteers can apply to put their organization to put their needs on the board, actually. So they can connect via that a search engine, and then all the rest is up to the organization structure that was mentioned before, the mentoring, and of course all that needs to be done in order for the volunteer to learn about the rights, the obligations, actually about the whole relationship of a volunteer regarding to the user. Yeah, like I said, in the COVID situation, the things were different. We moved a lot of mentoring sessions online. It is not perfect, but it still can be done, and it still can. It is possible to educate new volunteers that are always ready to come whenever a crisis occurs in any kind of way. People always come, they look for opportunities. I want to be included. I want to help. I can help. So it's quite important to jump in quite fast and to forward the information to people fast, efficiently, and of course keep the quality of all the work. So we did it like mostly online. We did it in smaller groups, and it all went well, and it still is going well. Like, let's say we were coordinating the driving when at the full lockdown of the traveling system in Ljubljana. There were people working in elderly homes who could not come to work. There were elderly homes with COVID positive people, and the employees couldn't even use the cabs. So they couldn't come to work, since we had volunteers that wanted to help, but they were not medically equipped with medical knowledge. We included them in driving people to work and from work. So we connected with one of the wholesaling businesses. They were closed, so they had cars who were standing there. The cars that usually they give out to people who bring their cars to the technical service. So they offered us the cars, so the volunteers had the cars, and they were driving people to and from work at the time. So it was like a quick solution of the situation that was in need at that time. About the support of municipality of Ljubljana, I would call it's not just support. I would actually frame it as a partnership with the municipality, because I think it's like really, really important for us. If I just look at Slovenian philanthropy in Ljubljana, we are situated in the house that belongs to the municipality of Ljubljana. It was actually a project that is going to be presented in the good practices. It's called Viška Hiška. I think it's a really interesting point of collaboration of different stakeholders. Basically, we got a place that was at the point when we got it was inappropriate for any kind of use, but with the help of others, with the help of volunteers, with the help of a lot of company fundings, of course with the support and partnership of City of Ljubljana, because otherwise we wouldn't even be here. We renewed the house, and now this is a whole center, like the base of Slovenian philanthropy. And of course, with all the other cities where our other houses are located, we have 7 locations. We are having really strong connections with municipalities everywhere. I mean, I can say that there would be no houses if there would be no support from the municipalities. So I think the municipalities are the first partner that we turn on to. It's not just about, you know, the financial cooperation in the field of offering the free space or whatever. It's also the promotion of volunteering and, you know, the whole support of the action in the city and in a town.
Great. Thank you very much, Marietta. I think like good practices is always something that are nice to listen about. And Marietta just very nicely started with this. So I would put next question to Simona. Can you share with us some good practices that you see that are results of like mutual cooperation of like different stakeholders that like you as a municipality support that, and then like with other stakeholders, you can really create something good? Like what would you emphasize as the good practice?
Yes, first example is like we a clinic and consultancy for people without current health insurance. The purpose of the clinic is to offer health service to all those who for various reasons are unable to arrange basic health insurance, and licensed doctors carrying out their work as volunteers here in Ljubljana. Then older people encounter volunteering in both roles as voluntary work provider. It's everything okay?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So older people on the one side, they are as voluntary work providers and as participants in activities carried out for them by other volunteers. In recent years, volunteering has particularly developed in daily activity centers that are in Ljubljana for older people, at which they can find socialization, organized recreational exercise, other social and leisure activities, as well as workshops and intergenerational connection. But now in the COVID-19 period, the importance of volunteering work became even more apparent. I have the two good practices. First is bus drivers were as volunteers delivering food and helping with urgent non-scheduled transport in the city of Ljubljana. The city in first period of epidemic organized home food delivery for children from at-risk families and elderly citizens, and drivers of city buses were volunteering to perform the deliveries. Bus drivers also helped with urgent non-scheduled transport of people who urgently need access to essential services or errands. This was organized by the Slovenian Red Cross. And the second good practice was in the when volunteer for the elderly. Elderly citizens who were alone, did not use social networks, and were anxious about the situation, and they needed our special attention. For this reason, the city of Ljubljana connected with a network of volunteers who want to make everyday life easier for the elderly. The people involved were workers and volunteers from the Home Care Institute Ljubljana and Ljubljana's cultural public institutes like theaters, galleries, and so on. The volunteer project manager was using the Home Care Institute Ljubljana's phone number to collect the contact information of those who wish to be called by volunteers. And then the volunteers talked to the elderly about their jobs and about how the city's cultural institute work, as well as about normal everyday things in order to help the elderly overcome their feelings of loneliness. This is some of our good practices in Ljubljana.
Great, thank you very much. Zorana, maybe would you continue?
Yes, I'm listening, Simona. It seems like we are working in the same office because we in the city of Zagreb had very similar good practices in our city. But I believe that you all know that we in the city of Zagreb faced a big, huge earthquake last year. And this earthquake was just at the beginning of March. You know, the quarantine started, I don't know, in 1st of March, for example, and the earthquake hit Zagreb in 22nd of March. So we didn't have time in our city office to think what to do only because of the pandemic and COVID situation. We had to face 2 crises at the same time. And we were in one pretty tough situation because, you know, epidemiologists said, stay at home, and the earthquake said, go out of your building. You know, I know it's funny situation, but that was our reality last year. And unfortunately, at the end of this 2020, Zagreb was hit by another earthquake. The epicenter was in one town near Zagreb, in Sisak and Petrinja, but in Zagreb was also a huge earthquake. So I think that during this last year we had an opportunity to experience all our good cooperation for this last 20 years that we had. And during this 2020, all good cooperation that we had was pointed out, you know, because, for example, NGOs, Red Cross, Caritas, and other NGOs that are dealing with our citizens took the role of how to help people, you know, in, I don't know, in food or in some help like I don't know, hygiene needs and packages and everything. And we were just one local government body, local government city office that coordinated them by the needs of our citizens. And this cooperation in this crisis situation was very good conducted. And I think that our citizens were, I don't know if I can say so, satisfied with our work that we have done together. For example, people who were hit by an earthquake in the area of Zagreb where public transport didn't run, like buses and trams, then some NGOs took the role with volunteers to bring the meals and the packages to these citizens. So I think that all of us now have to think what to do for another maybe bad situation like this. You know, in these times when everything works well, we have to think what to do in the future. Among this very challenging 2020 for us, we have good cooperation with Volunteer Center of Zagreb. It's one big NGO for this regional area in Croatia, and they have one good platform through internet, yes, and on which citizen can send their needs for help and I don't know, actions. And we recognized this NGO like a good example of acting. So we have agreement with this center that we are conducting every year on how to conduct every volunteer action in our city and how to gather volunteers for our citizens.
Great, thank you, Zorana. Markus, could you tell us something about the good practice of the coaching that you have established in the region?
Okay, I'm always careful with good or best practices because if it becomes your reality, it's sometimes hard to say, wow, this is best or good practice. It's just practice. Huh? What I realized is that looking at and this is where I'm coming from, because we are speaking generally about volunteering, there's so many sub layers, and the sub layer I'm speaking about, and I'm apologizing for that because this is my box, so to say, is this international volunteering, that we had some kind of pilot projects like 8, 9, 10 years ago where we tried to involve
other regional or actors from the city, civil society organization, citizens organizations to host international volunteers and to create one mutual project together for a year. And it went quite well, but then, and this has something to do also with working realities, if there's no driving engine anymore behind in person and in finance, these structures disappear. And what I try now since more than a year is on coming from international youth work to see, okay, who are potential youth support structures, rather based on civil society actors, also on communal structures or bigger NGO structures, where I see the potential to host international volunteers. And then I started slowly, carefully to approach them and say, look, there are programs. And then the first step was to make them familiar with also with the funding opportunities and the structures behind, but also the demands from the program, or I wouldn't call it restriction, but there are certain limitations and certain conditions. And if you go for this pathway, you should be aware about. And since 1 year, I'm constantly, I would call it coaching in a way, these organizations and individuals in this pathway to host international volunteers. And now it's not anymore Weimar, which is quite a tiny place. I mean, 60,000 inhabitants, but we are a bigger region. Thuringia, one of the federal states in Germany, also the capital city of Erfurt, or the university city of Jena nearby, where there are several organizations where I regularly go, at least now virtually, to train or to coach not only the coordinators and the core staff, but also the mentors and local volunteers, because they are the ones which are then very close to the international volunteers, because it's a peer group we are speaking about. What does it mean to implement an international volunteering project within the European Solidarity Corps as a main funding instrument? And this is what we are currently doing.
Great. Thanks, Marcus. Chris, I would actually ask you about the learning aspects of volunteering as well. Like, how will you support the learning aspect in the framework of your project?
I really started this position a couple of months ago, which basically means we're still in the process of actually starting to teach, basically, kind of give new knowledge to the volunteers that have signed up. And what I've realized is that a lot of people are really motivated to actually learn more about our own, because obviously this is a culture project, are really like wanting to learn and motivated to learn about the own, like the heritage, what is going on here, what have I not seen, what do I not know, what is popping up, because obviously culture is in Luxembourg, I wouldn't say the most evolved, which is kind of especially those younger people that might have studied elsewhere. Like I have studied in the UK, and when I came back, I was just like, it's very different. It's not as evolved, and it's something that I would like to be part of and evolve. And a lot of people have that same idea. And in a way, I'm also incorporating different people who are part of the volunteering team, which, for example, I have a couple of people who work in human resources. So I also wanted to incorporate things like, because obviously I cannot look over 1,000 people at once. I will need to have people that I can trust, that are still volunteers, like leaders. So I will also be incorporating a leadership program to push those and have people that might want to learn more than just being a normal volunteer and, I don't know, hand out leaflets at an exposition, but also literally people who want to also maybe look at their job prospects, because that's literally what we are, with some students that sign up for what they want, because they just want to experience where they currently live, where they study, because we literally our office is literally placed like 300 meters from the University of Luxembourg, which basically means they see us and they want to be part of this big project that is happening. And unfortunately, the marketing hasn't gone out as much as we hope for. So a lot of people don't actually know what is happening, which means that our volunteers are automatically also representing the project, which I think is also something. And with that, the volunteers are also representing the image of the actual territory, which also kind of means that they're representing the municipality, the cities. Luxembourg is really tiny. We have barely 600,000 people. So we have to try and incorporate and motivate people, because they think different. We are in the middle of Europe. We have so many different cultures that we need to figure out who we are. And especially, I think in my mind, I don't just want to teach them my views, because I'm local, but there's a lot of different cultures, which means incorporating their own ideas into creating this community and creating something for them as well, because that's what I hope it will be at the end, that it might be going on after this project finishes at the end of 2022, which would be the most amazing thing ever. Like in Matera, which they have done, they had their European Capital of Culture, and now 3 years later, they are actually making it an actual volunteer base, like a full, which is kind of what I would hope this would end up with, to have a community that is also willing to volunteer and therefore also help the community of the territory. I think I kind of went off the question. I honestly, I'm sorry.
Completely fine, because it's actually the next question that I wanted to propose for Marietta. It's very connected with what you have finished with. What is actually, it's like room for maneuver, how to actually develop the promotion of this like cross-sectoral cooperation, which of course in the end, like more stakeholders, which are like everybody's bringing something, can as well like create maybe better volunteering and more space for solidarity.
Yes, at this point I could like really quickly return back to Renata Saleto's really good thought on, I think we could all agree that political participation could be like the biggest stone for like a stepstone to do things really good quality and to make bigger movements. But otherwise, I don't know, I would say like raising awareness all the time and everywhere, advocating policies that encourage solidarity, that encourage good practices, encourage social activism, to include vulnerable groups in every kind of actions. I think that actually we need to kind of listen to each other. All of the stakeholders need to kind of we all need to learn to see each other as partners, to learn to see each other's needs and learn each other's languages, find solutions that it's not easy and it's not always possible to find solutions that suits everyone. And actually to find a solution that suits everyone is a miracle, but to kind of get through some barriers that are placed somewhere. I think that actually volunteering in all this can be in a way a medium, a way, a glue actually for combining, for doing things, for connecting. And I think that basically all this is like essential for society growth, for society development, and actually for society survival in a way. So I think that partnerships, cooperations with like all of the stakeholders, with public institutions, business sectors, volunteer activists of the civil society. We have that written in our vision for all of our almost 30 years of existence. It's like action, actually. It's involvement, action, raising awareness, advocating good practices, good policies, actually uniting the language in a way. It's really broad, but
thank you very much.
Shortly.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I would actually invite you now, like this is the question for everybody, as we need to somehow sum up as well. Like what would be your advice for maybe the people who are not yet so skilled or like so experienced in volunteering, how to increase solidarity, how to support volunteering? Maybe Simona, you can start.
Quality voluntary work is a social responsibility. So I think it's necessary to assure adequate funding from the municipality if we are talking about how municipality can support volunteering, because organization must have the professional and material ability to establish and maintain organizational structures for the management of volunteers, including introductory and additional education, mentorship, like we said before, supervision and other support mechanism, as well as internal and external evaluation of their work. And as we do in Ljubljana, for other municipality, I think it's important to support volunteering organization. Support could be financial. The city could supply premises for volunteering organization. In the public tenders, voluntary work could be treated as a separate and financially valuable contribution of program providers. It is important for the city to participate or to organize some volunteering activities, and as Marietta said earlier, not only to support volunteer organization, but to build partnership with volunteering organization. I think this is very important.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Zorana.
Yes, I agree with Simona, and I can say also that I think that our role as a municipality should be, and it is, in financing, in giving us support through some projects, through the space that our NGOs working in, and so on. But through all these 20 years, we positioned our role of our city office of the city of Zagreb as medium, like one place where all needs of our citizens come to, and every action of NGOs and volunteers come to. So we are gathering all these needs and opportunities at one place, and we developed one mechanism how to manage to help and to answer to all these needs to our citizens. So I think that this is our main role, except these finances and everything, but how to answer with our NGOs and civil sector to the needs of the citizens.
Great, thank you, Zorana. Markus?
Oh, what a big question. Oh my God, how can I sum this up in 2 minutes? Perhaps one thing is that we most probably might a little bit of change of a paradigm in practice. If I look at civil society organizations, and the reality of civil societies within all Europe is this firefighters situation. So whenever there's a huge issue, civil society is coming in and needs to solve problems, and it's not just about earthquakes and fires in Portugal, or earthquake in Croatia or in Italy or whatsoever. It's also about when it's about human rights violations or issues with how to say integration or discrimination, racism. I mean, the field is huge, but then NGOs are mostly seen as the ones who can solve problems, but also this mechanism of sometimes the state of delivering things or pushing things to the NGOs, which we might discuss, is this not also originally a task for other structures? But anyway, what I want to say is that we most probably need a little bit of change of paradigm and practice, but also change of attitude towards this, okay, volunteerism, and especially international volunteering, is nothing on top. It should be inherent in a way in the practices and the work we do, but then also to be honest, to say, okay, this needs time and resources, because then people also need further education and training in order to build up certain competences. And I think I was trying to draw this picture already on the beginning of what it means to deal with international volunteering. Yeah, that's what I can share shortly.
Great, thank you, Markus. Chris?
So I hope I understood the question right, because yeah, again, I'm sorry. I think it's very important because first of all, obviously the financial part is very important. And obviously without financial resources or professional help, it's really hard to train volunteers. But I also think it's very important I don't know why, I'm just a human person. So I'm very focused on the fact that volunteers are humans, and in a way, they are not only the people that help others, but they in the same way also help themselves. And I think it's very important to also make them understand that through volunteering, they can become better humans and they help themselves without even noticing sometimes. Solidarity sometimes, in my opinion, comes from the fact that people are being told to do something that they might not want to do. And then in the end, they start enjoying it. And they kind of, they suddenly realize, oh, I actually like this. Oh, I evolved from it without realizing, because they might just want to help someone else evolve, but they also evolve with it. They are when someone said before, relationship between volunteer and user, I don't see it that way at all. I see it as people helping people, and in a way they also are helped back, because if I help someone and they feel happy, it makes me feel happy too, in a way. So I think that relationship is very hard to define sometimes, because that's my point of view. I hope I understood the question right. I'm really
you did.
My logic is very different sometimes to other people. I'm sorry.
Very good. We very well understood the question. So thank you, Chris. And Marietta, you have the last word.
I love your point of view, Chris. I think the same. I mean it. When I came to Philanthropia, I came from a totally different area, and I learned the word users. And to me, it was really, wow, that sounds so weird to me. So I agree completely. And what I would say, I mean, everything has been said basically. But what I would maybe suggest to organizations who are less, who are starting with their volunteering, it's plan, but don't plan too rigid. Leave your spots open. You never know what will come from any kind of direction. Don't put your walls too tight. Leave the opens open, because you can be surprised what comes when you're on a journey you believe in. That would be what I would say.
Thank you very much. I would very much like to thank you for all of your inputs. It has been very nice to chat with you, and we could do it, I think, for much longer, but of course, as always, we are time limited.